Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another Good Morning Grief Devotion. It's your boy, Pastor Corey Allen Duncan Sr. We are so excited to be here with you on today as we lead you in a very special way and yet another Good Morning Grief Devotion. Hey, this is the daily grief devotion that is strategically designed to help you to navigate through your grief one day at a time. What is grief? I'm so glad you asked. Grief, my brothers and sisters, it is the natural, normal, and necessary response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expressions of feelings and emotions. Grief is what you feel on the inside. Mourning is what you reveal on the outside. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't ignore it, but we explore it. We don't lock it up, but we let it out. And that's why we shout good morning, because morning is a good thing. I'm so grateful and thankful that you're here with us on today as we lead you in a very special way in yet another Good Morning Grief Devotion. Today is day 118. We're going to talk about I am not my loss and grief. I am not my loss and grief. When people are knocked over by a significant loss, they sometimes set up camp there. It's normal to be steamrolled by loss, and it's necessary to give my grief the time and attention it deserves, but it's not normal or healthy to make my ongoing life only about loss and grief. I think this is so very important. I remember when our church turned, it might have been 2 or 3 years old, and I preached the anniversary. The title of the sermon was Don't Park at the Celebration. Don't park at the celebration. And it was out of Exodus, and I was talking about how they came out of Egypt, and they were celebrating, and they were so happy, they were so excited. And I was saying, yes, pause for the cause, celebrate what God has done, but we can't park here because we still have work to do. People have tendencies when great things happen to park there. They get complacent because they think this is it, and they stay there too long instead of celebrating right the moment and moving forward. Um, I say, what did I say? Been chaplain of a team, football team, 15 years. And when they win, I say tonight celebration, tomorrow preparation, because we got another game coming, right? We're going to pause and take the time tonight to celebrate. But tomorrow, we got to get right back in the mode of preparation because we got another game coming. And I think it's important for us to understand this too as it relates to our grief, right? That when people are knocked over by a significant loss, sometimes we camp there, right? Grief is a journey that we're supposed to navigate through, right? It's not a campground that we set up for all of eternity and end up staying right there in the midst of in the midst of that circumstance, right? It's normal to be steamrolled by loss, and it's necessary to give my grief the time and attention it deserves. Give your grief the time and the attention that it deserves. You want to make sure you give it all the time. You give it all the attention that it deserves, right? But it's not normal or healthy to make my ongoing life only about loss and grief. We cannot camp there, right? We can't make our ongoing life for the rest of time about your loss and your grief. God gives us the strength to navigate through the process, right? To feel, to reveal, so that we can heal, so that we can pick up the pieces and we can continue to live again and love again and laugh again. Because there's still many more chapters of the book of your life. And there may be some people that you have set up camp at your grief that when it comes to mourning, remember, grief is what you feel, mourning is how you reveal it. Some people have halted, you've been hindered, and you've been held up because you have stopped the mourning process. And if you find that's you and you stalled and you stagnant and you stop, that's when you stay there. And that's not what you want to do, right? You want to be able to navigate through the process, right? But it's not normal or healthy to make my ongoing life only about loss and grief. I am a multidimensional person with many facets. The relationship I had with the person who died may have been a very special, very feature facet, but it was not the only one. As I'm grieving, I'm working on rebuilding my self identity and exploring all my other facets. That's part of the process. We work on rebuilding our self identity, right? And we explore those other facets. And this is so very important to understand that the relationship you had with the decedent is one facet, maybe one facet of many, one facet of several, one facet of a plethora, right? Of facets of your life. Your life was not just wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up into this one facet. You are multi-dimensional. And this is the process. You start working on your self identity. You start exploring some new things. You start developing some new things. And I think for some of us, for so long, what happens is we ignore other facets and we pour them in only to one. So our identity becomes the fact, oh, I'm a wife, or I'm a husband, or I'm a mother, or I'm a father, right? And so we pour so much of ourselves into that one facet that for many of us it is our identity, because that's I don't who am I outside of being a wife? Who am I outside of being a husband? Who am I outside of being a provider for this child, right? Who am I outside of this role that I played? You got to know there's many, and so for many of us, we enter into a time of crisis because you take that away, it's our identity, right? I say same thing with sports. Same thing with whatever it is that you do. Athletes play. You think about it. They play pee wee, then they go to junior high, then they go to high school, then they go to college, then they go to the professionals. A lot of times they don't know who they are outside of this, right? They don't understand that they are them and not what they do. Because when you take away what they do, you taking me away. Pastors 40, 50, 60 years, you take that away. Deacons, take away your deaconship, right? Who am I outside of this? So a lot of times that one facet becomes so a part of who we are that we're unrecognizable outside of that, right? You got to know that there's multi dimensions when it comes to you, and you got to start develop a new self identity, right? I am a multidimensional person with many facets. The relationship I had with the person who died may have been a very special feature facet, but it was not the only one. As I'm grieving, I'm working on rebuilding my self identity and exploring all my other facets. Rebuild your self identity, explore these other facets. Rebuild your self identity and explore these other facets. You are a multidimensional person, right? Rebuild your self identity and explore these many other facets. I can both grieve and live. I can both mourn and find new meaning and purpose. I love it. You can both grieve and live. You can both mourn and find new purpose and meaning. Here's the final thought. My outer self identity is not fixed, but instead constantly changing. My true self identity is not form based, but instead a timeless spirit. I love that, y'all. My outer self identity is not fixed, but instead constantly changing. My true self identity is not form based, but instead a timeless spirit. Today is day 118. I am not my loss and grief.